Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Pedestrian Advisory Committee's March 3rd full committee meeting.
You might have to repeat that, Abigail. It hadn't started. You see the little prompt on top?
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the March 3rd Pedestrian Advisory Committee full committee meeting. Notice that this meeting may involve the remote participation by members either by telephone or other electronic means due to the local public health emergency of the novel coronavirus pandemic, pursuant to the provisions of Minnesota statutes section 13D-021.
Awesome. So now I'll call the roll, right? Okay. Aaron?
Hello.
Hi, Aaron. Abigail?
Hi.
Adelaide? Barb?
Here.
Christopher Hoffer?
Here.
Christopher Ross? Donna?
Here.
Jim Welsh? Julia?
Here.
Matt Steinruck?
Here.
Neil?
Here.
Paul St. Martin?
Here.
Awesome. Peter Vader?
Here.
Sarah Goodell? Sarah? Nope. Tamir? Carrie? Emily?
Here.
Awesome, Emily. Emma? Eric?
Oh, hi. This is Emma. I'm here. Just
Hi, Emma.
Hi.
There you are.
Heather? Heidi?
Here.
Hi, Heidi. Julie?
I'm here.
Hi. Chensmo? Ratana?
Present.
Ratana. Sonia?
I'm here.
Hi. Suzanne?
Here.
Hey. And Millicent is here. Chris Kartheiser?
Hi, I'm here.
Hi. Matthew Deardahl?
Hi, present.
Hi. Is anyone else here that I didn't call their name?
Hey, Millicent, it's Mackenzie Turner Bargain. I am attending on behalf of MnDOT today in place of Chensmo Walker.
Okay, Mackenzie. Anybody else? Okay, we've got 21 people.
Looks like 21.
All right. Thank you. Next up on the agenda, as always, is the adoption of the agenda and the acceptance of minutes. Someone would like to move those.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded. So now we'll do the roll call vote with Millicent.
Okay. Aaron, was he here?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, aye.
Aye. Abigail?
Aye.
Barb?
Aye.
Christopher Hoffer?
Aye.
Donna?
Aye.
Julia?
Hi.
Matt Steinruck?
Aye.
Neil?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye. Aye.
Okay, that's it for all voting members.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. And again, it's good to see you guys. Next up, we're going to do the reports. So first up, of course, is the Ine Subcommittee Reporting.
All right. Barbara, are you okay with me reading off the minutes?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So the subcommittee, Infrastructure and Engineering Subcommittee this month had two projects. The first was a Safe Routes to School project on the near north side that was presented by Forrest Hardy of Minneapolis Public Works. This is to be a 2022 construction project that will go on 16th Avenue North from Queen to Aldrich. Right now, this is a concept design, winter and spring 21 concept design, and detailed design is to follow. The primary goals of the project are to improve safety, connect 3 schools and 3 parks in the area, and address safety in a documented pedestrian crash concentration corridor, and fulfill city all ages and abilities priorities. Forrest showed us a number of example concept treatments to slow vehicle speeds and make 16th Avenue more suitable for walking and biking, including speed humps, median refuge islands, chicanes, mini traffic circles, and they're surveying the people that live in the area, reporting high vehicle speeds on 16th Avenue North, and so they want to calm traffic in the neighborhood. So we adopted a resolution that I'm going to read. The Pedestrian Advisory Committee supports efforts to reduce vehicular speed and increase comfort for pedestrians in near North Side Safe Route to School project. We favor the installation of the best available traffic calming devices for accomplishing these goals.
So moved. Second, I mean.
Any discussion? Julie Danzel has her hand raised.
I do. I just want to say Forrest also came to the last Safe Routes to School work group meeting and presented an update on the project. And as part of the engagement, I'm not sure if he mentioned at Ine, but they did also go to a couple classes at North High School and got some input from students as well. So just offering that additional information. Glad to see the motion.
That's right. He indicated that he said the students at North High said they might bike or walk to school if traffic was calmer, but they also have personal safety concerns in the area, and that could affect people's willingness to walk and bike to school.
Indeed, indeed. I think that was their primary takeaway actually from the conversations with the students was personal safety as opposed to traffic safety. Yep.
Yeah. Should we vote on this resolution now?
Why not?
Okay. Aaron,
Aye.
Abigail,
Aye.
Barb,
Aye.
Christopher Hoffer,
Aye.
Donna,
Aye.
Julia,
Aye.
Matt Steinruck,
Aye.
Neil,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Peter Vader.
Aye.
We have 10 ayes.
Yes.
All right. The second project that came to Ine was a reconstruction of the intersection of Lasalle Avenue and West 14th Street that was brought to us by Amy Morgan and Nathan Kemmer from Minneapolis Public Works. They're working to get this implemented in 2021. LaSalle Avenue is a one-way, 2-lane southbound roadway, if you're not familiar with LaSalle. Near the intersection of LaSalle and 14th Street, there are a number of road users, including 1,500 pedestrians, 400 bicyclists, and 5,600 motor vehicles per day. And there have been 3 pedestrian crashes and 26 motor vehicle crashes in the last 3 years on this intersection. The goals are to enhance comfort and predictability for all users, reduce crossing distances to support demand for safe crossings, and upgrade ramps to be ADA compliant. The project goal is to have a 30% design in the next few weeks with detailed engineering before doing a late summer or fall construction. Currently, the crossing distance to get across LaSalle Avenue is 40 feet curb to curb, and between 31 and 36 feet, depending on the side of the intersection, to cross 14th Street. So they're introducing curb extensions to each corner to reduce crossing distances from 40 feet at LaSalle to 28 feet, and from 31 to 24 feet across 14th Street. They're also exploring the potential for green infrastructure at the intersection, which often means stormwater collection. And we, again, adopted a resolution for this project. So the Pedestrian Advisory Committee supports efforts to reduce crossing distances at Lasalle Avenue and West 14th Street. We ask that parking be taken further than 30 feet from the intersection in order to open sightlines vital to safety of all mode users at this intersection. We ask the city to explore a curb-protected intersection for the bike lane to further narrow the crossing distance. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Now, would there be something between the sidewalk and the roadway so that a blind person wouldn't walk into it, or the bikeway, I mean, so a blind person wouldn't walk in the bike path?
That's not something that we talked about, but I imagine that the textured pavement kind of treatments that they have done elsewhere would probably be done here.
That's what we want to make
I'd
sure.
note that the end product will be a standard crossing with the truncated domes. It'll just be a little shorter crossing distance.
Oh, so there would a blind person wouldn't walk into the bike path inadvertently then?
No, I don't believe so. No, no.
Okay.
I think
Assuming the standard crossing with the truncated dome, where they have the bumps where you can feel it under your feet, like before you cross into the street.
Okay.
if I
Yeah,
understand,
that will be typical. Yeah.
if I understand Donna's question though, it's more, we ask for a curb protected intersection for the bike lane, which is similar to what I think is going in downtown on the Hennepin redo. So that is something like they're working on how to communicate that, because there's essentially two different crossings. And as I understand it, the city is developing sort of best practices for that. So I would expect that if they do listen to us on that, they're definitely going to be making sure that they have the appropriate tactile markings for both.
Okay.
They put quite a bit of effort into talking through during the Hennepin project. There was a specific MacPod back and pack. Like, I think we did 3 meetings with a number of members of each talking about that.
Okay, I just had to bring it up because I don't want us to get missed and all of a sudden, oops, it's done and we can't know where we're at.
Totally.
Very, very important.
Thanks, Donna.
Okay, with no further discussion, let's take a vote.
Okay, Aaron,
Aye.
Abigail,
Aye.
Barb. Aye. Christopher,
Aye.
Donna,
Aye.
Julia,
Aye.
Matt Steinrich.
Aye.
Is that an aye?
Yes.
Okay. Neil,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
We have 10 yes.
And that was the whole infrastructure and engineering meeting.
Wow. Thank you.
Aaron.
Yes.
Wish I'd
yes.
been there.
Right, me too. And thanks. And so with that, unless there's any other questions, we'll move on to programs and policies report.
Yeah, hi all. I would, one PNP element that we added in at the last INE that's on the minutes there is that we, as part of the Safe Routes to School project discussed there, we had a little talk around the use of traffic diverters and actually moving cars off of, forcing cars off certain streets onto others. And that's going to be a topic for more discussion at a future PNP meeting. I've got the minutes for, and I refer everyone to the minutes for the for our February meeting when Ethan and Luke from Minneapolis Public Works were in to update on the completed street design guide. I would add the URL. It's not, I haven't found it Googleable or DuckDuckGoable or anything. So I'll add the URL here. It's simple. It's SDG as in Street Design Guide, sdg.minneapolismn.gov. So the standard minneapolismn.gov and then SDG dot in front of it. It's good reading and it's pretty breezy and a lot of illustrations and I followed along well. Everything's in the minutes. I don't know, have much to add on it. Julia, what would you like to add to that component, the street design guide presentation of our minutes? I don't know.
So for anyone who remembers, there have been previous documents. I don't remember the name, but there was like a one. It had street furniture and different widths, and this replaces all of that. So this is going to be one that we can refer back to. It's definitely a guide. It's a living document. Ethan was very clear about that. And so we can go through it. We can ask questions about it of both of them. And it'll continue to change over time. I'd say just sort of dive into it and see what it's like. Donna, I'd be fascinated to know how the accessibility is. I had a question about that I was already asking too many questions. So hopefully it's a valuable one for us.
Ethan stressed that it's, the living document component of it, which certainly invites, if not insists upon PAC participation as we, every day, every month of the year. So it's a great thing to review, keep in mind, and to think about or keep in the back of your mind as we're walking about our city. Other component of our other topic on the agenda is from our minutes from February was the capital improvement projects CIP discussion, and Chris led us through that. Again, that's another process that that'll continues throughout the year on a cycle that's described in the minutes. And again, another thing for us to be thinking about as we go through the year, ideas and additions to our resolution from last year is what we're working on next is what our 2021 resolution will look like, building off of what we did in 2020. And Chris Kartheiser, would you add?
No, I mean, I think you summed it up. We're still working on that, so there will be more to come on finalizing that resolution. But I will say I was really happy with how the conversation went. I think our previous year's work on this really set us up in a good place, and I really like the style that you're all using for this. So I feel good about it. Thanks.
Terrific, Chris. Thank you, Julia.
I'd just throw in a teaser that we'll be continuing to discuss it at our next PNP meeting. And it's one of the big things we do throughout the year. So please, if you can, attend. And if it kind of feels overwhelming or you're not sure the purpose, feel free to reach out to any PAC member, or I'm assuming also city staff, to find out more, ask any questions that you have, because it can be a bit overwhelming and full of acronyms.
And on that subject, as personal, show up, shut up sort of person, fancy myself that anyway. It's like this was a good way to just like start from the standpoint of one's own personal peccadillos or personal beefs or hoorays for the city and for capital improvements and for things you might want to see. So just starting from that can be a good entree into this process, into the PAC work at large. So, and I'm open to any and all questions on our meeting. If any, and it sounds like we're complete on reporting on PNP for February.
Awesome, thanks. yeah, teaser, come and help with the CIP resolution next month, because then we're gonna, or later this month, because we have to pass it next month. So hopefully we'll get some good stuff in there. Next up on the agenda is a discussion, and that is the annual report to Transportation and Public Works Subcommittee of City Council. And I just wanted to give an overview. And Matthew, I don't know if you have anything to add, but I was going to share what this is for new members really quickly.
I think that sounds really good.
Okay, so if you're new to the PAC or you just forgot, the annual report is something that the PAC, the Pedestrian Advisory Committee, and the Bicycle Advisory Committee do together in the first quarter of the year to, well, it's called the annual report, and historically it's been looking back at the previous year, but it's basically just a chance for the chairs of the committees as representatives to just speak directly to city council members on this committee, Transportation and Public Works Committee of City Council. So that's going to be happening this year. It's later than usual. I think last year it was in like January or February, and some PAC members, we ended up at, like, they were at City Hall and we were all there, and then afterwards we like all went out to lunch because the meeting's from like, you know, 10 to noon or something like that, and we present sometime in there. This time it'll obviously be online, but I think the timeline is the same. And this year, just given the changes to everything that's happened, we're actually presenting to them on March 31st. So put that in your calendars now. Alyssa, who's been named the Bicycle Advisory Committee Chair, and I will be presenting on the 31st of March, and I think at 10 a.m. and I'll make sure an email goes out so you guys get that link, or Matthew will do it or something. This year, I wanted to share with you what Alyssa and I have put together, at least in a broad sweeps overview fashion. You know, we haven't really worked out all the details, but I kind of want to share with you the overview, and then I want to get feedback from the Pedestrian Advisory Committee to make sure that everything is covered, and that when we speak to this, we're speaking, you know, as representatives for our committees. So to that point, I just want to stress that this year is going to look a little different. I think historical years, I did last year's as well. Historical years has often been like a report out and a looking forward to the future sort of high five, pat on the back, we can do this kind of thing. Last year, I think Nick Mason, who was chair of the BAC at the time, and I had a little bit of more teeth on our words when speaking to the city about making transformative change and the reasons that we need to instead of incremental change. This year, I think that's resoundingly the entirety of our presentation, is that incremental change is not neutral, and maintaining the status quo is not really good for everyone. So we do need change, and it kind of is centered around that. So Matthew, I don't know if you have anything to add before I dive into the overview of it for everyone.
Maybe I'll just describe my portion of it too. I'm
Sure.
the third, presenter, and typically my role is as city staff is to bring the item up to City Council, and so I'll basically spend a little bit of time, just a very brief amount of time, talking about or setting the context from this past year, and just like how the committees have had to adapt to online, remote meetings and things like that, and also just honor and note outgoing members, which there were, many more on the BAC side, but definitely PAC as well. And so that's basically what I'll do, a very short introduction to the chairs. That's what I have.
Great. So yes, so Matthew will kind of introduce us and just talk about kind of changes that happen and changes to people. And then Alyssa and I get to dive in. So I'm going to first share with you kind of the overview, and then I'm going to go in through I'm going to kind of follow what my slides say, and then I'd love it if you could take notes and then save all your questions and comments for the end, and then I'm going to write them all down and take them in so that I can make sure to kind of mirror that in our presentation and really understand what we're doing. So again, like I said, the goal is to really push the agenda of transformative change, centered around really like the policies that the city has set for itself, and comparing that to the projects the city has done and or sets for itself. So the agenda will kind of, the goal is to really, again, center on that idea of the status quo is not neutral, the status quo is a choice, and we do need to aim for transformative change, not incremental change. And the way we're going to do that is to highlight first what's at stake. So there are imperatively large things at stake. In the reason why we need transformative change, we're going to talk about the mandates for why transformative change has to happen, even in the action level. And then we're going to go into a case study of a particular project to talk about why the status quo is problematic. And this case study from 2020 highlights that, something that we saw and we passed a resolution on. And then the last thing we're going to do is highlight some ways that transformative change can happen, and changes to processes and just kind of like how things flow down and how things work in like public works in general, and how that kind of basically perpetuates the problem, and how maybe they need to look at a bigger thing. And that's something above and beyond what the PAC can often ever really make a comment on. So really sometimes like this is the only place where we can talk about how the process is forcing the status quo to remain, and that is kind of why it's a problem. So the first again up is what's at stake. And so we have a couple things at stake, and the first one is obviously racial justice. So the city has passed a racism as a public health crisis declaration, and racial justice is at stake for our city. And I think the world is watching Minneapolis in that case. And our public spaces, our streets, are where a lot of things play out, and it presents some of the biggest challenges. So that is a part of our transportation policies. Next up is climate justice. Obviously, the climate is at stake. And then we have a graphic here about how every year we fail to take transformative or bold action. It means that the following year we have to take even more bold or transformative action. So really, we have to start, and we have to start now, or it will be too late. And then we also just want to highlight that we can't just have a transition. We need also a just transition. So in the transition phase of this transformative change, we can't maintain leaving the people behind who are constantly left behind, or inequitably left out, or inequitably hurt by the status quo. In this transformative change, the change has to be just, and it has to be based in building equity. We need to swing the pendulum the other way in the transition period, as much as in where our final goals are. These things at stake are often also held up by our mandates. The city has passed a lot of policies that are, progressive and forward and visionary to a certain degree. We have our Complete Streets policy. We have Vision Zero. We have the Transportation Action Plan. We have Climate Emergency Declaration, Minneapolis 2040, and then racism as a public health crisis. But we do want to highlight to the city that just because they're policies doesn't mean they're happening in practice, and it doesn't mean that they're making changes. And what we actually have a graphic here that shows historically from 2009 on, where like the pedestrian master plan, streetcar network approval, bicycle master plan, things kind of were approved over the years, but transportation emissions never went down. So we can kind of show how like historically so far our policies haven't done the work. So what will do the work? Again, the status quo is the problem. And then we're going to list a couple things here. We're going to list different resolutions that the PAC and the BAC have passed, and highlight in them where the PAC or the BAC say, pursuant to the Complete Streets policy, or to reach your goals of the Transportation Action Plan, or to because of the Climate Emergency Declaration, this project should have this project should see this. So we're going to show how us as committees are responding to the issues that these policies are made, and they're not being reflected in the project. So we're just going to highlight the work we've done on continuously calling out these policies as being necessary to create more transformative change. So that's kind of, we have the stakes and we have the mandates. And then what's up next is that we're going to talk about the status quo and why, and kind of help City Council understand where the problem lies. And my case study that I'm going to be doing is the protected bike lane on Blaisdell Avenue South, particularly as it goes through Lake Street. So from like, 28th, 29th through 31st Street, kind of in Uptown Eat Street area. So Blaisdell Avenue South. Blaisdell Avenue South has a bike lane right now. And if you guys might remember the project, we saw it last year. It has a bike lane now. And what they're turning it into is it's going to be a two-way bike lane with curb protection. It'll be street level, but there'll be that like raised curb. And then there's going to be some intersection protection as well. So there's going to be traffic calming measures. It's going to better connect the bikeway. As it goes north, it actually creates a bike connection. So it's kind of connected to several other bike projects. But we're just going to talk about Blaisdell Avenue. I'm going to highlight that Blaisdell Avenue is on the high injury network, but work has been done to it since. The bike lane was put in after they did the measurements for what's on the high injury network. So we don't know the changes to the street that have come yet. Blaisdell Avenue at Lake Street is one of the most dangerous intersections in the city for pedestrians. It's 6th on the list for highest total pedestrian crashes. But what I want to highlight about this project is, yes, you're putting curbs on the bike lane, you're making it two-way, you're making some bike connections. Perhaps the curb protection that you're going to do at intersections will make pedestrians slightly safer. But on the project, you are leaving Blaisdell a two-way in one direction through the most dangerous intersection, which is Lake Street. And I have a graphic where it talks about how on one-way streets, 2 lanes are twice as dangerous as one lane streets, and how there's a graphic saying that in the pedestrian crash study and the Vision Zero crash study, recommendations are made to always reduce travel lanes where possible on projects for safety. So above and beyond, obviously, just like some smaller measures of safety. We can't assume that when there's still 2 lanes going in that direction, there's still the same amount of cars going through that intersection at any given moment. And that in and of itself is inherently more dangerous. And I also want to highlight that Blaisdell won't reduce vehicle miles traveled. Blaisdell at its busiest intersection is allowing for the same amount of cars to go through it. And the goal of reasoning why I'm putting Blaisdell, why I'm kind of lighting up Blaisdell is because Blaisdell is, and maybe I should say this at the beginning, it's probably one of the best projects we saw in 2020. We felt good about it. We passed a resolution when it was at the 30% mark saying that we liked it a lot and we hope that these curb protections and these intersection changes will calm traffic and make things safer. But what I want to highlight is it's not going to reduce VMT. It doesn't reduce the number of vehicles in the intersection. And the bike lane that already was put on Blaisdell may or may not have already made Blaisdell slightly more safe. So we're also missing a lot of opportunity around the city to do like massive vehicle reduction, which is really the only way streets are safer is when there's fewer cars on them, right? And there's more people. So I want to highlight that this is a perfect project for incremental change. This is a perfect project to highlight how the city is going to make it slightly more comfortable to bike and walk, but make it no less, like it's the same amount of comfort to drive. And at the end of the day, this is inherently the problem, because with that kind of mindset on our best 5-star gold projects, we're not going to make our goals. We're not going to move forward or shift forward at the speed we need to meet our transportation action goals, to meet Vision Zero, to do things like this. So that is my case study on one particular project. And I think highlighting that one is even one of our best, but showing how it still won't make the changes that we need to make is kind of the talking point there. And so given that, so understanding how it's the status quo of how we do projects that's problematic, we want to talk about how, like, so that process is obviously failing us, because if Blaisdell is our best project, how are we going to have the transformative change that we need to meet where we need to be in the next 5 to 10 years and to meet our policy goals? And so our goals next in the presentation would be to talk about actual ways to create transformative change. And Alyssa is going to speak about pursuing what's right, not what's easy. To talk about, Alyssa is going to talk about the Bicycle Advisory Committee's enforcement resolution that they passed. And then I'm going to speak a little bit about the resolution for George Floyd Square that we passed about listening to community members on what to do with their street when making decisions. And then we're going to talk a little bit about upcoming things like Hennepin Avenue South and how that as a major city thoroughfare that's still 4 lanes of vehicle traffic is a chance for us to really highlight the city to truly highlight what it what it wants the city to look like, and what the city doesn't do on Hennepin will speak just as loud as what it does do, because it'll also give voices to all of our partners like Hennepin County or MnDOT to kind of look at that and ask the city, like, how serious are you on your policies, to see, to hopefully force them to also change as well. We're going to highlight the fact that we need a transformative leader. We're going to talk about the process of hiring someone new now that Robin Hutchinson has left. So we're going to talk about the need to find leadership that's going to push for transformative change in a way that even actually surpasses what Robin has done. And then we're going to talk about how we need to rebalance the entire system and how there's a broken piece of the puzzle about fixing Blaisdell doesn't make the city wholly bikeable in every direction. Like, we need to balance the entire system. So these little project by project pieces don't really help us balance a system where we need in maybe 1 or 2 years to transform the entire system, that quick changes are better and more preferred, that we need like rapid change to a systems wide approach instead of this like piece by piece approach, because in the next 10 years, how many miles of street are we going to touch? Not nearly enough of the streets to make transformative change for the system. And we really only have a small number of years to do it. So we're going to talk about balancing the system. That's another example. And lastly, we want to ask the city to put their money where their mouths are and just talk about the budget process, funding the right things, and how at the end of the day, no matter what the policies are, if money isn't attached, we won't get there. And we all know that that's true. And in the end, our last slide says, we must act as if our future is at stake, because it is. So that's what I have. I'm sorry if it's not like perfectly coming out, because obviously I haven't practiced it a lot, but I would love to take feedback now.
I think what you've got is excellent. Obviously, the presentation, like you say, you'll do it how you wish at the time. But I honestly think the bones of it are just spot on. The sense of urgency, the sense of equity, the sense of system-wide change. It all is important. And I think one of the most important things you said was that it's really nothing more than what the city has already passed in its various declarations. It's not out of left field. It is a core statement and restatement of what the city has already said through climate emergency, racial justice emergency, the transportation action plan. This is not out of left field. And I think that's an important point to hone in on. So thank you.
Thanks. I see hands, so I'm going to go in order. I think Julia, you raised your hand.
Yeah, I think it's really, really good. If we're there in person, I'll probably be bawling. So good thing we're on video.
All of a handkerchief.
Exactly. Like, it touches on so many of the things that are why I joined the PAC, and it pulls, you and Alyssa did an amazing job pulling it together and putting it into an order and with illustrations and big picture. Just everything I heard, I'm really behind, and am brainstorming about how to show that support to the council members who will be doing it, since we can't be there in person.
Maybe just like hold up signs in your little video. Well, actually, we probably aren't even allowed to be video people, right?
Yeah, I'm wondering, like, if we email them all, or what we can do, because I think it does help when we're present and they're having to see that it's more than just the 2 chairs.
I have an idea. Maybe if those that can attend, if you can if we can get an email list going and let me know, I can, because typically one of the roles that I play in the meeting is to, acknowledge people in attendance, and that's always nice. So we could do that. People could just tell me who that they're there, and I'll say, these folks are watching as well with us.
That's great. Yeah. So if you can make it on March 31st, tell Matthew in an email, and then he will shout that you're there. And then hopefully the list will be so long that they'll be like, wow, look at all these people showing up.
Cool.
So. Barb?
Yeah, I just thought you did a great job, Abigail, and it sounds like you guys have really worked hard on this. The one thing that I was glad that you talked about, and I think it will be important, because so many of the streets that we have issues with are streets not controlled by the city, is building relationships and establishing cooperation with the state and Hennepin County. I think that's talking about that and really talking about how important that is, because we can do stuff with the city streets. We can make the changes that we need to make quickly and with great expedience. I think there's no reason that can't happen. But I think that's challenging with Hennepin County and the state to try to get the same kind of cooperation and the buy-in to these important issues. So I was grateful that you had that in there.
Great. Yeah, I'll make sure to stress that, because I think you're right. And I think we all, fume about it constantly. So it's definitely important. Thanks, Barb. Peter?
I'll pile on that. It's just really strong, direct, and completely relevant stuff, and points they know in their hearts are true and need to be repeated again and again. So I really appreciate that. To the extent it doesn't diminish any other message, I wonder if we are in our justice pursuit is both racially and a class pursuit as well.
Good point.
Yeah. And I agree. And I think speaking even just to car ownership can be.
And disability.
Yes. Okay. I'll make sure that those words are included in the in talking points. Thanks. Matthew?
Yes.
Turn and then Julia. Okay.
Okay, so feedback that I want to give is pretty specific but important. The connection to your words is so important in this case, and what I mean is the middle part where Abigail was discussing the resolutions that you've actually passed and how they tie to the message is really important, because I think you all have, I think, very strategically changed the way you've done resolutions over the past year or two. It's been more nuanced. It's been more specific and strategic. In the early years, I think there was a lot of just hey, we support this project, and I think a couple things that over the past couple of years, the presentations have changed and been a little bit more not critical necessarily, but amping up a little bit of the urgency. And so I think, since every possible plan and policy has been passed pretty much at this point, I think this presentation is just is so on message for where we are. And so I just compliment, Abigail, Alyssa, and then you all as a committee for changing your approach to writing resolutions, and I just think that's reflected. And then finally, Abigail, we are going to need to cut content. So I just, we have a limited time we can present, but we can talk about that later. So
I know. I need to, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that the content's good, but I know I can shorten how I say it.
Totally.
I'll get there. Julia?
I'm thinking about how great what I heard was, how I want other people to hear this. And I think there are other people who would want to support this. I'm hearing about, Matthew mentioned reading off the names of people who attend, but is there a way that if people attend to show their support for this, that would show up or could be indicated even just by the sheer numbers, if not names?
No. So not live during the presentation, but I think a part of what I heard is that you said a lot of people will be interested in this, and this will be on a YouTube accessible video, right? So like we could, I think that wasn't exactly what you're asking, but like if people want to see this message, it'll be very easily accessible.
And maybe even an what do you call it, an extended cut. So Abigail doesn't have to cut any of that because every single word of it was great. So
well, they can watch this video. They could watch this video. Yeah. No, we don't have a production budget, so.
Matthew, can people like show up and participate in the meeting? Not participate, but like call into the meeting, or can people only watch it live streamed on YouTube?
It's the well, people. So just like all city council meetings, like people can attend and see like what attendees would be able to view is this basically. They would see the screen, and that they wouldn't be able to interact
Right.
with the council members.
Would that still show the council members, like if all of a sudden it says like 300 people are here, would they be like, whoa, or what?
I don't know, and I don't think so.
Okay.
Would there be any way to attend that meeting just by like I'm doing now with this committee?
Exactly, and yes, Donna, and that's what I was trying to describe is that the public can just participate just like you are right now, Donna. It's just I think the question from Julia and Abigail was, will there be a way for the council members themselves to sort of see that?
I think Matthew,
attendance. Yeah,
you would know because you've been a part of these. Do they use Teams to run these meetings?
They do. It's basically this.
Then yeah, if it's the Teams live, then they actually will. They should be able to know how many people are in attendance.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So it might not be because it's slightly different setup, but for other Teams live events, we've been able to do that. So they very well may have the number, but not like who that is.
Right. Good
So
point.
so they could see how many people are there. Okay.
Possibly.
My goal is also to what?
Oh, just possibly. I just want to make. I'm not entirely sure, but there's a good chance that.
And then my goal is also to invite everyone who's running for city council to the meeting so that they can hopefully, if they can attend, they can also watch. So if we have any new council members, that like end up winning, then maybe they've already gotten kind of an introduction into the pack in the back. So that is one goal, and people running for mayor as well. So I'm just going to send out like an email blast to all the candidates to invite them to watch, if not attend. So
would this be the same phone number?
I think it will be different, Donna, and my goal will be to make sure that I email the pack, or Matthew, you could do it or whatever, the link and the phone number to attend that on March 31st.
Yeah, if I can get an email, and then also, of course, the code number.
Yeah, so I think both things, like we'll make sure to send out, an email with that instructions. Then Donna, I'll just follow up with you specifically to make sure that you have the right number.
Okay, thank you.
Cool.
Yes. Anyone else? No? Are you sure? Okay. Yeah, you'll if you ever get to see or speak to Alyssa or any other meeting or in any other plan, let her know as well, because a lot of this was her efforts too. So we've been working together, but she had an overall vision, and I got to help fill it in with all the great stuff that the PAC has done. So, and also thank yourselves and pat yourselves on the back for being the PAC.
And the time, there's a question about the time. It is 1:30 p.m. on March 31st.
That is a different time than last year.
It is, yeah.
So 1:30 p.m. Okay, I didn't know that, and now I do.
Oh, okay.
So 10 a.m. like I said. What was that?
Is it 1:30 to 3:30, Matthew? So it's 2 hours?
Sorry, more that the start time is 1:30 and it just ends when the meeting's done.
Okay.
So we don't know when we'll go, right, Matthew?
That's correct.
Okay.
It depends on, it depends on the agenda, but the way it typically works is, there's a consent agenda where they just like sort of, approve the motions as they're written, I guess. And then there could sometimes be public hearings on like a street project. And then there's discussion at the end, and it just sort of, we don't know if it's a busy or a light meeting. And so it could be fairly close to 1:30, or it could be, later. So.
All right, thank you. With that, I guess we can move to our next discussion item, which is the year-end review, which is something different, which Chris Kartheiser is going to explain to us.
Yeah, so actually I need to apologize. I just pulled up the agenda and realized that I made a mistake. This is on me. The slides aren't on the agenda, so they haven't been shared publicly. So I actually, according to our rules now, which we're holding strong and fast to, I can't, even though I have these slides, I can't present it since they didn't go out with the agenda. So a couple options, Abigail. Either I can kind of like talk through some of this, which will be far less interesting than the pictures I would show of this project, or we can figure out a later date, whether it's next month full or a subcommittee to do this, or I can just provide this as like an email update to members with the slides and the pictures and descriptions of the projects. But so I apologize for that. I didn't catch that.
Wouldn't you need to describe the photos anyhow for Donna?
I would be describing the photos anyways, but there's not the added visual aid of the photos. I'm happy to just talk through, like list the projects and talk through them a little bit right now, and then get everyone the presentation at a later point. But I just wanted to put that to the chair to see how you think.
Why don't you just give us a walk, like a talk through, and then you can share the presentation in an email afterwards.
Sure.
With members, just so that we can look at it in our own time.
I think that sounds good. There's a few things like still worth highlighting. So some of this is just like highlighting all the things that you all have done. So I have a slide in here just with all the resolutions. You all passed 29 resolutions despite a 3-month break.
Just for new members, this is the overview of last year, the year 2020, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So basically what this would be is looking at all the projects that were actually built in 2020. So some of these might have come through the engineering committee in 2019 or something like that. But looking at all the projects, and then also a couple of the at least highlighting one other thing that's non-engineering. But so we had 29 different resolutions from the PAC, ranging from resolutions on specific projects to resolutions on some of our policies that came through. One of which, the big one, was the Transportation Action Plan, which was passed in December of 2020. And this committee put a lot of time, not just in 2020, but I think starting probably in 2019, into this plan. I personally think it ended up in a really great place. And we've heard a lot of good reactions to this plan, and just want to highlight the role that this group had in that, and thank you all for the time that you put into that. One piece of that plan, there's a lot of stuff related to walking and pedestrians, but really the main thing I was going to highlight was the Pedestrian Priority Network, which you can find on the TAP website, which is a new thing that we've adopted with this plan. And then this was a little bit of a different year since I've been here. We've had like a lot of projects every year. It's been like project heavy. Depending on just how the budget works and funding goes, it kind of ranges from year to year. This year we saved up, or in 2020 we saved up some of the specific pedestrian funds to fund some projects in 2021. And so.
Whoa.
Wow, that's great.
And so there were a total of really 5 main projects that I was going to highlight, and I'll just hop through these quick. So one of them is 18th Avenue Northeast. So in Northeast between, I believe it's Johnson and Stinson, if you're familiar with the quarry, like the what is it, a Home Depot and maybe a Cub and a Target or something right there. This is behind that on 18th Avenue. And so that was reconstructed, and on the south side, a trail was reinstalled. I believe there was a trail for most of the way here, and then that trail was brought all the way up to the intersection leading up to Johnson. So a new wide trail there that for part of it is mixed use with bikes and peds, and then kind of breaks off into pedestrian facilities on one side, and the trail goes kind of between the trees for the bicyclists. So that was one. One of, I think, maybe my favorite projects, or like the most impactful projects, I would argue, since I've been at the city at least, is the President's Bike Boulevard, Hennepin Avenue project. So this is Hennepin Avenue, again in Northeast, between, what is it? I think it's like 5th Street and Polk. It's right by 5 Watt Coffee. It was previously a 4-lane undivided, which we know are our most deadly streets. It's a Hennepin County road, and it's on our President's Bike Boulevard route. And it went from 4-lane undivided to Hennepin County did a road diet. So it's actually a two-lane road now, and a nice wide trail facility on the north side. Also, a signal was installed at the crossing at 5th and Hennepin, which was just a horrible place to cross before, if you're familiar with that. So all around, I think maybe one of the biggest, most dramatic safety improvements I've seen, especially for just a 1-block stretch. So that's a great project. Grant Street and First Avenue. This is specifically a bikeway project. I don't know that there were too many pedestrian enhancements, aside from the fact that it's a protected bikeway in areas, and so we know that kind of thins the road and provides some shorter crossing distances at the intersections as well. So that's Grant Street and First Ave, headed into downtown around the convention center. Oak Grove and West 15th Street, which is over by Loring Park. And so I believe there were some temporary treatments here for a little while leading up to this, maybe a year or so. And we installed a concrete buffered bike lane, curb protected bike lane, and bumped out the intersection at Oak Grove and West 15th, which, if you're familiar with that intersection, was a really wide intersection, really wide turning radii, so cars could really just turn really fast on and off there, and it was pretty awful place to cross. And so that's been tightened up with a bump out and that addition. And then the last one was also just a resurfacing of Rollins Avenue Southeast and Elm Street, which is a weird little part of a U of M bikeway. And that was just a two-way bollard protected bikeway installment with no specific pedestrian enhancements. So sorry that I couldn't also show the visual aid during this, and I'll make sure, it sounds like Millicent's going to be able to post this publicly on the marked agenda when we send that out. So it will be available there, and we'll also send a note to you all just as to where you can find it. And that's everything that I've got.
Thanks. Do we want to open for any questions if anybody has any? Okay. Thanks for sharing, Chris. And we look forward to the presentation as well.
Yep, thanks.
Next up is a quick chat about engineering subcommittees with everyone's favorite, Matthew Deardahl.
Yes, thank you. So this could be sort of classified as maybe a reminder slash, I guess, update on thinking, or just something to chat about. The context is at the at the executive committee that we had last week, which sets the agenda for this committee. The group talked about the upcoming Engineering Subcommittee, where Becca Hughes will bring Hennepin Avenue street reconstruction project. And it was just because of I thought it was important to talk about it then and now, just because of how big of a project it is and how important that is to all of us. And, this committee and the BAC have been talking about it literally for years, even before we submitted an application for federal funds. And so it's just kind of a conversation we wanted to have about maybe some reminders or what to expect. And a couple of those pointers were thinking about decoupling the big picture, policy direction of the city from the project details. That's maybe one way to look at it. Another is sort of prioritizing the discussion at the to the scale of what's being presented. And so what I mean by that is there will likely be some specific options that Becca will be looking for feedback. And so just thinking that it'll be really important to focus on what's being presented and helping provide good guidance and feedback to make those options the best it can be, and let Becca and the city know which options you might prefer and why. And then if there's bigger picture policy issues we want to talk about, or questions about does this meet TAP and all of those things, save those too, because that's really important. But maybe we can sort of address that at a full committee, or maybe even better, programs and policies subcommittee. So that's a little bit. And then also just the thought of wanting to make sure that everybody gets a chance to contribute, because we assume there's going to be a lot of comments. And so one idea the group had was to ask folks to prioritize and maybe write down during the presentation what your top question or two is, and we can sort of go around and make sure everyone has an opportunity. But I guess I'll leave it at that basically for now. And also just note there's an open house on Hennepin Avenue tomorrow. There was one yesterday as well, and I believe that's at 6:30. Is that right? Do folks know? I can double check when I'm done talking. Sorry.
6:30 to 7:30.
Gotcha. Cool. So the topic I'm talking about was brought up because of Hennepin, but I think it's just good advice and good things to think about for all the engineering, just to make sure that the project managers get what they need at that time, and also that we don't miss out on the bigger picture conversation that we can take up at the appropriate time. So I guess I'll just stop there and see if others on the executive committee that were there have anything to add, or if anybody on the call has anything to add to this conversation. If not, that's fine too. All right. Thank you. Our favorite chair, back to you then.
Great. So that is the fastest meeting for how much is on the agenda that I've ever had, I feel.
We're done? Amazing.
That is
okay.
That is the last.
We had to make sure. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And because of all these rules now, it's not like we can even add items for fun. So the last thing to note is if there's any announcements. So I'll open it up for anyone to make an announcement. Julia, raise your hand.
Yes, I have two announcements. One was to, I want to send out the link to the Hennepin Avenue meeting that Matthew was reminding everybody about, and encourage everyone to attend or to do online comments. As we talked about earlier in the meeting, even though this is in just one part of the city, it's just Douglas to Lake Street. It's one of the only city-controlled community corridors. Most of the others, like Lowry and Lyndale and Franklin and Lake Street and Central and University, and all of those are county-controlled. So this is the city's chance to really show what it values. And what happens here is basically likely the best that we can anticipate the county doing. So we really need to do right by this street from a systems perspective, from a whole city perspective. Right now, I'm really wary because I'm not seeing any bike lanes between Douglas and Franklin. And I walk that area a lot, even going to PAC meetings back when we used to see each other and meet up in person. And there's always people biking on the sidewalk because it's the direct route between a lot of different things. So there's some stuff that's, the plans are looking decent, but it's not certain. And some of them are looking scary and we really need to push. So I encourage anyone who can to show up to give comments, all of that. The other thing I want to let people know about is today is the last day for comments on Hennepin County's climate action plan. And we did not see that the county didn't decide to come in front of us to present that. But they talk a lot about transportation and they even almost mentioned sidewalk drainage. They have some really good stuff about using an equity lens and in how they look at everything in their climate action plan, but it's really not prioritizing accessibility, people using wheelchairs, people walking and biking, and people using transit like it needs to meet the goals that we need to have. So I will email out a link to that, or you can Google the Hennepin County Climate Action Plan so that people can participate. Today is the last day. But you know, even just comments reminding them of the importance of prioritizing basic transportation over electric vehicles or other tech solutions is really important. So that's what I'll throw out there. And again, except for the county also determines so much of what happens in the city. And so if we can get the county understanding better the importance of what we talk about here, it'll come back to us.
Thanks, Julia.
Thank you.
Peter.
Yes, just super incidentally, there's a lot of ways to connect to these meetings. Or Teams gives you a lot of ways to connect through the phone and app and web and all that. So I joined the app and built a Microsoft account just for this purpose. So, and what the app offers when you're signed in is a closed captioning that I'm finding working extremely well. Even to the kind of the acid test is proper nouns. And for instance, Becca did not become Rebecca. It stayed Becca, and Lowry stayed Lowry, and Franklin was Franklin, and all that stuff. Anyway, so to the extent anyone can get some value out of the live captioning, I'm finding it working really well through the Microsoft Teams app, and I think you need to be signed in at the same time. But that's all.
Great, good to know. I don't know if I'm even signed in. Like I downloaded the app itself, but I didn't, like I don't use the browser, I use the app, but like am I signed in? So I guess I'll have to look around.
Look and see if this, in the upper left corner of the window with all our videos in it, if there's the CC, the closed captioning is enabled, then without being signed in, then being signed in is not necessary. Then.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't see that, so I probably don't have it.
What I figured.
And then I see on the note, I was left in the comments that Emma from the park board said she has to head to a board meeting, but the park board Parks for All comp plan timeline has been extended for public comment through July 18th. So you can weigh in on the plan and find monthly virtual meetings to discuss with staff. So you probably just have to look up, she gave a link in the chat, but if you want to just look up the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board's Parks for All comp plan. I think it has its own website and everything. So, and then also now we're all trying to turn on captions. Anyway, anybody else, any other announcements?
I'm just curious. I don't know if the new members, I'm going to be pulling for the email list to send out stuff like we used to, but I don't know if our new members are on that and I don't want to exclude people. So if anybody knows that they have an updated list and can email that to me so I can make sure to do this right in the next like 5-10 minutes, that would be awesome. Or new members.
I think Matthew, can you just send?
Julia, if you have the invitation to this meeting, then everyone that's on here should have been invited on that same invitation, and their email should be in there. But otherwise, if that doesn't work, then I can get that to you.
Yeah, whenever I want to email the full committee, I do what Chris just said, and like I pull up, I open the calendar invite, and then you can just go to like reply all, and then just like copy the names right from there into an email.
Like in the calendar?
Yeah, at least the way Outlook works is you can open the calendar, and then there's like a respond section, and you know whether like you're going to accept the invite or not. And I just there's a respond place.
I'm not seeing that. Could you copy that over and send it to me?
I can do that. I'll do it right now. I'll send it to you, Julia.
Sorry for bringing tech issues up in here or my.
Matthew, no one uses Outlook, so you need to. Only you.
I clearly noted that I use Outlook, and that's how I do it. So yes, you're a good point. Fair enough.
Did when I worked in an office and I had a work computer, but any other announcements, questions, comments from anybody? Any new members want to say anything? Okay. With that, then I guess we move to adjourn.
So moved.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Good meeting.
Thank you.
Yep.
Bye.
Thank you.
So long, all.
Bye now.
Bye.